Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to the Phoenix Dawn Command Art Hangouts. I'm Grace Allison.
I'm Rich Ellis.
And we are the artists of Phoenix. We are both primarily comic artists.
Both involved with Periscope Studio. But before we delve too deeply into that, we both wanted to just take a second here at the top to thank all of you wonderful backers and all of you wonderful people for making sure that this game is going to get to you and it's going to be awesome, and even knocking out the first reward.
Stretch goal, yeah.
For awesome.
So we're going to have very nice cards. So
we're
thank
all
you very
excited
much.
about that. And now a little bit about us. We're both members of Periscope Studio, local comic book collective.
Locals in Portland, Oregon.
Yes.
Sorry if a cat meows over us.
Oh yes, we should also mention that along with getting to talk to the both of us, you may get an opportunity to talk to either one of our two cats, who are at this very moment scoping out, coming to talk with all of you. So don't be surprised if that happens. But we're both local freelance artists here in Portland, Oregon.
We are big game enthusiasts. We've been playing a game of D&D 4E for how many years now? 3, 4? How many years?
Years beyond my reckoning. But
so we enjoy tabletop gaming, video games.
Yep.
I just finished Dragon Age. It was pretty sweet. But that's not what you're here to listen to. 1 second. Let me figure out where your questions are. There we go.
Got our first cat visitor. This is Wesley, everyone. He's the man in black.
He's a sweetheart.
Yes.
Okay, so our first question is, did you come up with the individual school icons? And if so, how? Question. That's kind of a yes and no answer. When we were first approached to do art on Phoenix, Keith and Jen already had some initial design work. If I can show my screen, I'll start showing you examples. But
yeah, when we were attached to Phoenix, when we were getting to know the project, there was some initial design work, mostly symbols, none of the card art like anything that you've seen. But Keith and Jen have been working with a friend of theirs on some very initial designs and got a logo design. And one of the things that they had versions for were the school symbols as they appear. And you can see them here in between the letters of Phoenix, the initial designs.
This was the initial
bitter,
durant. Forceful,
I believe that's forceful, yeah.
Forceful, devoted,
that's the shrouded,
and elemental. So we retooled all of them a little bit because we gave them their kind of final form. Here were our sketched out versions of them. And we made very few changes to the durant, forceful, and elemental. But the bitter, devoted, and shrouded,
we thought could be a little closer to the mark for...
There's the bitter. And we decided for the bitter, that's the one where you're using your pain and your wounds to inflict more injury. And we thought it should just be very sharp and kind of aggressive, kind of reminiscent of a dagger.
The hilt of a dagger or a volcano, all of these shapes, like the ethos for creating any sort of symbol, as we've found it on Phoenix, is really just taking a couple shapes that feel evocative of the mood you're trying to create for it, and then trying to simplify it as much as possible. One of the things we loved about the Durant and the symbols that were already there was how simple all of the shapes were and how simple everything came out. So we wanted to keep that going forward.
And then here's the devoted symbol. And what we decided for the devoted symbol is we wanted to emphasize that the devoted is serving the other members of your wing and helping them, supporting them. So we decided to make those pips into arrows that were pointed towards the center, kind of the heart of the wing,
exactly,
if you will. And then finally, shrouded. I believe you did the shrouded symbol.
Yeah, the shrouded, as it stands, it was very, very simple. But we did a few tweaks with it where the shroud over it is a little bit more angular and a little bit more concealing. And on the inside, as a little nod to shrouded, is the school of secrets, secret knowledge, getting to know secrets, and sort of keeping your cards close to your chest, as it were. So I liked the symbolism of the shroud covering up
secrets.
Yeah, secrets. It's half white, it's half black, but you don't really know what it is or what could be under there.
And so those are the main school symbols. We did do other symbols for it as well. I'll give you a quick sneak peek. Over here on the right is the Dawn Command symbol itself. On the left, it's some of the status effects that you can encounter. Directly under those are the soup symbols, which the school symbols each fall into. There's strength, which is durant and bitter. Intellect, which is elemental and shrouded. And then grace, which is your devoted and your
forceful.
Thank you. And here's kind of how we go about designing the main symbols. We first talked to Jen and Keith about just general ideas, and for the Dawn Command symbol, what they didn't want was a phoenix directly, the bird imagery. They wanted more of the torch. So we took a couple passes on something kind of angular, kind of unusual, that said torch, but not in a very direct way.
Yeah.
And 4 is the direction we decided on, though they had some additional comments, and that's how we ended up with
the symbol.
The funnel.
Yeah.
And to give another quick example of designing, one of the enemy types is the Bone Legion, and their army needed a symbol that was like a fire, but kind of rough, kind of rudimentary, something they could scratch or paint onto their shields.
Yeah.
So here's just some very simple fire designs we came up with, and we ended up going with the version of number 4, and here's kind of how that got implemented on some final art.
Super sneak peek.
Let me get our faces back. Okay. All right, so I apologize if there was some weirdness there, figuring out how to end the screen share. All right, so next question.
All right.
Phoenix has a very different look for most fantasy games. What were your inspirations? For this, there's kind of 2 different types of inspiration we took. There's developing the style and then developing the design. So would you like to talk about style?
Oh, well, with the style, when we were attached to the project, we did a bunch of preliminary art, a bunch of our different takes, kind of really blue sky thinking with Keith and Jen, because they had a strong feeling that they wanted Phoenix not to look like every other card game that we pulled off. They didn't want the cards to be reminiscent of anything or really feel like anything that you had seen before, because it was such a unique world and such a fun gaming experience. They didn't want to. They wanted it to have its own voice, and so we went through a number of different approaches for where the card art finally ended, and we landed on something I think we all feel really strongly is a unique and interesting style that I don't think
that we kind of mashed together from a bunch of different influences over time.
Yeah. We took a lot of inspiration for the style from classic tarot cards, medieval illustrations,
especially the woodcuts.
Yeah, the woodcuts.
The simplistic kind of blocky look.
We took a lot of the patterning is influenced from Byzantine patterning from like pre-Renaissance religious and
works
medieval
and
art.
Iconography.
Yeah.
Kind of a lack of perspective and
an intentional
and
like
foreshortening,
non-realistic representation of size and hue. So some art that follows some really different rules than what we're used to seeing in modern illustration, especially modern card art.
And of course, a limited color palette
right.
to be, again, kind of reminiscent of the woodblock art, something where there was very few color processes that were available.
Yeah, we wanted the end product to have a feeling of that this, when you get your Phoenix game, that when you open the box, it could feel like it was produced, at least mostly, in the world of Phoenix. Like you would picking it up, opening it up, and it looked like something that could have been an artifact from the world of Phoenix. So everything we wanted to have it feel that it could have been printed on a printing press with a 3-color process and been done awesomely. So,
and then also the design of the cards and the design of the different cultures was a big thing that we used reference for. Each of the cultures kind of has its own voice that's semi-modeled on historical designs.
Yeah.
For example, the Elona is the largest country on this on the map, and it has a very Greco-Roman feel. We looked at gladiators and
gladiators, ancient Greek armor, some
phalanx,
Roman things, phalanx,
shields,
sort of
strappy sandals.
Yeah,
it's very in.
It's a civilization that's sort of got the organization of the Roman Empire, but with most of the technological inputs of earlier cultures. So all of them are really like mishmash. All of the cultures we're pulling from multiple
sources.
Yeah, multiple sources. Sometimes
as well as just fantasy stuff.
Yeah, as well as doing our own design, so that it's not like you can't quite peg it down to one place.
The Grimwald is another one. It's a highly forested area, kind of a jungle feel, and we took a lot of inspiration from Celtic warriors, Germanic tribes, some really cool stuff with like tattoos, face paint, antler headdresses. And then let's see, the Scavi, they live to the north. They were less of a direct historical pull and more just seeing how much we could implement furs on everything. Fur wraps and boots,
ruffs,
and
cloaks.
They look like they're from Winterfell.
A little bit.
It'd be okay.
Yeah.
And then the Shadowvar, they're kind of a wandering tribe that is constantly looking for information on their history and other histories. And for that, we went with kind of a combination between Romani culture dress and kind of an Arabic feel with harem pants and big like shawls, cloaks, a lot of things that conceal the face because they're mysterious. And then just in general for the design, I'm very into horror games, and that was a good influence because a lot of the stuff in Phoenix is absolutely terrifying.
Yes.
So I actually looked up a lot of Japanese yokai, which are their monsters, and they range from ghosts to like women with very long necks. It's very creepy. You should check it out.
Yeah, a good way to get your brain going about some horrible, horrible things.
True.
Okay.
Should we?
Yeah, I feel like that explains some of our inspirations and influences.
Yeah. Okay. What's your favorite image that you've developed for Phoenix?
Ooh.
We're actually working on a couple now that may rival this one.
It's true.
But so far, our favorite card is the Affliction. And I will do a little screen share and show you its progress and process while we talk about it.
We'll go through.
All right. So it is the process of the Affliction card.
And so the process doesn't really start with these images. The process for us starts with playing the game and learning what an Affliction card is, which is really just sort of a joker. It's a mechanic in the game where you are given an affliction. It could be a disease. It could be someone infecting you with vampirism or a zombie thing, or you get poisoned. But basically, the card goes into your deck, and you pull it randomly, and when you pull it, bad things happen.
Yes. So the most important thing we decided about this card is you looked at it and you were like, oh, shit.
Yeah. It should feel like a portent of doom. So we took all of those thoughts and went back to the drawing board and came up with this traditional layout, which is the very first thing, along with, I think we came up with a couple other layouts originally that didn't quite make muster. So that's where it starts. We take this and we take it to Jen and Keith.
Yep. And so the basic concept is mostly what stuck. We wanted just kind of a group of things that are bad, essentially. We have the skull, we have poison, a knife, things that can be very portentous and bad. And there was a break in between our first layout for this and when we were actually working on the card, because when we first laid it out, we hadn't developed the style yet. Mm-hmm. So later on, we took that general idea and made a digital layout that was more along the lines of the Phoenix style. That is to say, simple, angular, kind of iconic, mm-hmm. And without some of the elaborate patterning in the background that was an original design. So we rearranged things a little bit and took them to the pencil stage, where you can see some of the trademark style elements of Phoenix, the little bit of hatching on the diamond pattern of the snake, and
flat decorative hatching, just simple angular refinements of form, and things looking relatively flat.
Yes.
And there was another initial change there, where between the digital layout and the pencils there, we moved the snake, because we're trying to. It's always a balancing act with the tone of creating the cards. We don't want them.
Want them to be scary, but we don't want them to be gruesome. Exactly.
Yeah,
we don't want to get too graphic with things.
Yeah, we're not trying to gross you out by looking at the card or anything. We're just trying to evoke the feeling of this is not good. So
we decided through the eye was a little too gross. We'll have it go through the mouth instead.
Yes.
Not that big a difference, but we thought it was important.
And then
so we didn't have a lot changing from the pencils to the inks.
Mm-hmm.
And then the colors. I can actually show you a bit about the coloring process here. So the layout. With the inks, when I go to color, I just use a basic 4-tone gray. And we hadn't set up a distinct color palette for this. Most cards, have a 4-color scheme that's all monochromatic. And for this card, because it's a unique card, we didn't want to leave it just gray like one of the Bones cards. And so we added in a pop of red, just to give it that extra effect of, oh no, the kind of bloody color.
Yeah.
that makes it really stand out. And we thought it was very effective, and it's just one of our favorite designs.
Yeah. Simple, it's perfect. Captures just the right tone.
Okay, I stopped screen sharing correctly this time.
Wow.
Sorry. Okay. What image was the most challenging to develop, and why? Well, I know what mine is.
I think it's probably the same one.
The chariot?
Yeah.
The
It's the
chariot.
chariot. We've talked about it briefly before, but
The bone chariot. Let me pull that up. You could.
yeah, the we've talked about it before because it was kind of a fun and unique challenge that we think got addressed relatively well.
We think we did awesome.
Yeah, we think we did awesome, and here's why. As we discussed earlier, the bones are a villain type subset in Phoenix, and one of the specific challenges in the challenge cards that we had for them was this awesome chariot pulled by dead skeletal horses with a flamethrower on it, and there's bones in the background, and one of them's like got a whip, and the whole chariot's falling apart
and being held together by ectoplasm. You know, it doesn't look like it can actually work. So it was
a very unique challenge to try and even incorporate a chariot by its very nature is a very long and horizontal shape.
And these are very vertical cards.
Yeah, we're working in a very vertical format. So trying to get everything in there and convey it in the way that it should be, because the description we got for this was awesome, was a bit of a challenge. And so we, in the layout form, I think we probably did the most layouts of this than
anything else. It was a long process of, you know, blocking in a chariot and a horse and just figuring out, first of all, how they could possibly fit in a horizontal fashion. And kind of the fix we ended up going for was to make them running down a hill, up or down a hill, because that was the only way to get that extra bit of diagonal space.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was that the horse had to be rearing up, because if the horse was fully horizontal as well, even then we wouldn't be able to fit it in.
Yeah.
And furthermore, because there were riders, it needed to be big enough that the riders would read. And these are already some of the smallest figures we have on these cards. But just by using all our composition tricks, we managed to get everything in there, and even get kind of this nice shape going, this strong diagonal light shape with the whip and the fire breaking through, which was kind of a triumph for us. And we actually really love this card. The ghost horse that was designed by Rich. I did the layout here, and then I think he did pencils.
I did the pencils
and inks. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
Ghost
one of the
Horse is awesome.
one of the things that we should mention about the cards is that the two of us work together, but we don't choose which card goes to which person. We both work on all of the cards in, like, there is no card or image attached to Phoenix that hasn't had both of our hands on it at various different stages. We trade off between stages to maintain consistency and
also just to play to strengths. When a card comes up that's definitely in his wheelhouse, you know, he pencils it, and when it's more something that suits me, then I pencil it. But
I think
the two things that stay the same is that he always inks and I always color. But layout and pencils are pretty evenly distributed.
50-50. Yeah.
All right. That is the chariots. Okay, next question. How important is it to play a game you're doing art for, and why? Very important.
Yeah, exceedingly important, especially with Phoenix.
Absolutely. And it was very lucky that we got to to play it as much as we did beforehand. And I can say in a completely unbiased way, I love Phoenix. It's right up my alley, and it's the excitement I have for it that really fires me up to work on these cards. I love fantasy, I love horror, and above all, I love role-playing in a game. And, well, this just sounds like propaganda now. Anyway, so...
while I share your deep and passionate love for the game that is Phoenix, even from a more objective point, especially with when you're trying to design a role-playing game, trying to design a whole world with as much mythos and history and complexity as Phoenix, even if there was a handbook of already produced material in text of like, this is what Phoenix is, these are the cultures, this is what we need from you, even if that was all developed, it's not something you can cram into your head really quickly. And having the personal experience of knowing the experience you're trying to design for the gamer, having been a player and knowing the feeling that we want to create while playing the game. Like we played for a while at the very initial things, and it's like any gamer and any campaign has played, like the first couple of sessions, you're kind of just trying to figure out who your character is and what's going on in the world. And we had the benefit of Keith.
It's true. Who's a fantastic marshal.
Yeah, Keith, who is fantastic marshal and fantastic at running the game, and very consistent with the world and feel that he wanted for Phoenix. You could tell his passion for it right away, and we had the benefit of being able to participate in that and really get a sense of the experience that we were trying to create for the players and the world itself. And especially with something of like a role-playing game or something with this magnitude,
you need to be able to relate to the players and be able to identify what the emotional pull should be. Like with the affliction card, we know we want people to have their stomach drop when you pull it. For a lot of the challenge cards, the innocence card, you want to make them feel really bad if they die. So, make all these really sweet looking people. And for the challenges, we know what needs to be, scary, what needs to be mysterious. It was very cool to be able to play it.
Yeah, like invaluable.
And get that, the feel for it.
It was an invaluable thing, and like, I can't imagine not having done it. So.
Okay. Was the gameplay design finished before you began the artistic development? If it wasn't, how has your design changed to fit the gameplay? That's a very good question.
Yes.
The gameplay design was...
I want to say, like, when we were first initially brought into Phoenix and started doing the playtesting that we're doing,
iteration or two ago.
Yeah, it was an iteration or two ago as far as playtesting. But I feel like 95% of the feel of the game and what they knew they wanted it to be was there. Most of what's changed
as far mechanics, as especially like numbers,
just how numbers are calculated, or where things are, just like little tweak things.
Yeah. So story-wise, it was all there. The mechanics weren't fully hammered out, which hasn't really changed how we've had to approach things, because very little in the actual story or the characters has changed.
Right.
There have been a few things. I'm trying to think of examples. Just a few points where Keith told us to go back in, because now...
I think that was mostly in number design.
No, I know. I mean, there have been a couple of places. Oh, the map! That's the thing. Let me pull up the map. All right, you didn't work on the map, so you don't know what I'm talking about. So there is a map to the world, and that was the biggest thing, where it was a back and forth with Keith, just about hammering out the city names, what and where was important, and if a certain location really needed to show terrain features, or here else, screen share, and I'll talk. So this is the map. This was the one that was most affected by things not being fully hammered out, because, you know, occasionally it would be, you know, this town's name needs to change, or this town needs to, like Halfsbridge up here in the corner, that was originally a little bit more inland, and then he mentioned that it needed to be kind of closing off that bay, you know, a nice defensible position. But in general, the gameplay was pretty set by the time we got to it, which was very nice. So here's a little bit of the world. All right. Cool. All right.
It looks like we're coming up on 3:31 here, so this will probably be our last question in the talk. We'll thank you afterwards, but thank you for being here already. And yeah, thank you for giving us wonderful questions and insightful questions to answer.
Okay, besides more arts, what went into the decision to use tarot-sized cards for this game?
Well, that is a big reason.
That is a big reason. We wanted more art. Another big reason was it's kind of a distinguishing feature for Phoenix. There are very few games that use tarot-sized cards, except for tarot decks. And it gives a very unique experience.
Yeah, things feel substantial, and one of the things that we honed in on when we were deciding between tarot and doing it at a more traditional size, like a card deck size or something like that, was that it was story. Some lever in the back of my brain, at least, triggers differently when you're holding something that is tarot-sized. When I think of tarot and doing tarot, I think of thinking about the connections between cards and between stories and thought patterns.
You're interpreting a tarot card.
Yeah.
It's an image and it's an idea, rather than something as straight up as, you know, this is a face card, this is a number.
Yeah, and for us, and I think for Jen and Keith as well, that is a much closer way that we want people to think of Phoenix when playing Phoenix specifically. The cards that you have in your hand when you're playing a game of Phoenix, they have a number value, there's numerical value, but in a very real sense, for most of them, you're looking at a trait or an aspect of your character. And what determines whether or not you can use that card to do anything in particular is only if you can think of a good way to justify doing it. So thinking about things from a story point of view and from a character point of view made natural sense to me, to us, to Jen and Keith, of staying in that mindset. When we want you to think about story and think about connections between cards and connections and creating a story when you're holding Phoenix cards. And for us, you could do that with something that was the size of a regular card,
poker deck,
but something just felt right about it. Also, bigger and more awesome art.
It looked pretty cool.
Yeah, who doesn't like that? So,
all right.
Yeah, I think that wraps it up. And again, for myself and for Grace, we want to thank all of the backers, everybody that came to give us questions, for getting this wonderful thing funded.
And we're looking forward to more of this stretch goals. If you haven't seen them, they're in an update, and they include a lot of new challenges.
Yeah, we want to draw those.
We want to draw those.
So
We've already read the description for one of them. It's awesome.
It is super awesome. And you want them in your deck, and we want to draw them. So we can make this happen together.
We can do it.
But yeah, just in closing, if you'd like to see more of Grace's work, where should they find you? At
grayallison.com. We'll post about it. And you, as your website functions right
my
now?
My website is currently, my portfolio website is currently under construction and having to revamp it. It's been a while, so it needed to happen. But you can find me on Twitter as Ellis Comics, and you can look for me on Tumblr at Ellis Comics right now. So thank you again.
Thank you so much for supporting Phoenix on Command, and we'll see you later.
Yeah. Bye-bye.